Hi, everybody. Welcome back. And I am really happy to have you on the show today, Brigitte. How are you, love?
Good. And I'm so happy to be on the show as well. This is exciting. And I think it's beautiful what you're creating. Just goes to show you again that in the midst of contraction with COVID-19, all kinds of new things can be created. So, wow, nice job.
Oh, thank you, love. And to you too. So I want everybody to know who you are. So Brigitte Boyea, like you said, a mixture of German and French.
Yes.
So you have a center for transformation called the Light Bridge. I'd love you to explain to people a little bit of who you are and what it is that you do, because you do so many things.
It's kind of hard to even put in words at times. So I went through a transformation process like everybody else, descending into my own darkness, working myself out of the darkness into the light, doing it over and over again. In the process, I learned many different healing modalities, starting off with Reiki, integrated energy therapy, universal healing energy, all kinds of different healing modalities. And eventually I was guided to this small mystery school in Maryland, which introduced me to channeling. This is for the first time where I even experienced channeling. So out of that developed that I became a channel and instrument of those who walked the path of enlightenment before us. So typical examples would be masters like Jesus, Buddha, many of those who went through a rigorous life and training to raise their consciousness, to raise themselves up to a higher form of existence, and who are now here to help us do the same. And I've connected with them. They're known as a hierarchy of light, but really they don't look at themselves. Sometimes they're called the White Brotherhood. They're not called white because of any color, especially in these times right now where color is such a controversial subject, and my heart goes out to everyone at this time, but more the purity is meant with that. So it's not about the color, it's about the purity of bringing light, bringing illumination, bringing a higher consciousness through. And so in the process, through also learning at mystery schools, I started my own center. It's called the Lightbridge Center for Transformation. And key aspect of that I've been working with Saint-Germain. Saint-Germain, truly, when the student is ready, the teacher comes. I've never wanted to be with a rock star of Ascended Masters because so many talk about Saint-Germain like he's a one-all. Either you like him or you hate him. There's nothing in between. So Saint-Germain is a master of transformation who's very much assisting right now in the transformational process here on Earth, where Earth is going through an evolutionary process towards the higher consciousness, more of a consciousness of oneness, of love, of peace, that some refer to as the new golden age. So I was truly contacted by Saint-Germain, and we can talk about it more if you want, but that brought me to create a metaphysical center. So really, the Lightbridge Center for Transformation is a metaphysical center where I offer teachings like Kabbalah, like how to channel. One of my focus is that channeling doesn't have to be for the selected few. Anybody can open up their channel to bring through the higher frequencies of love and light, all in their unique way. And that's why I always focus, not just calling it Lightbridge, but you will see in all my email names and website names, it's Lightbridge 101. Like, it's easy. Anybody can do it. And so my focus with the Light Center is to empower everyone who comes to me to heal, to feel empowered, to see themselves as co-creator, and to make new choices in their life. So I also offer one-on-one healing on a personal level, but also via phone and via Zoom.
I love it. That's great. Thank you for explaining that to us. So your journey, can you just take us a little bit back to your journey? So you said that you had Reiki, and then was that kind of the catalyst that opened you up in military school? Yeah.
Reiki probably was my most important breaking point in my life. Now, I've always had, as a little kid, imaginary friends. So there was a little bit of a dead giveaway that I had a connection to some of these higher beings. I just thought they were my imaginary friends. But later on, I I worked with tarot cards too. I did tarot cards, Rider White tarot cards for my friends, my family. But then I moved to America and I experienced quite a bit of a challenging time. And in this challenging time, it was my mother and my sister both introducing me to Reiki and saying, you know, why don't you take the Reiki class? My mom actually wanted me to come to Germany for it, but it never worked out. So I took Reiki here in America and it changed my life around. It started simple. This was like 20 years ago where you know, there was so much less out there. Reiki was a big deal at that time. And I always felt guided to be of service. So once a year, I participated at an expo and I did nothing else than hands-on healing. And out of that developed that I suddenly saw visions of people's parallel or past lives. And I started sharing things that I couldn't possibly know. And they even said, oh my God, how did you know this? This is changing my life around. This is really helping me. And that was the first step into my channel abilities. And then I took Usui, I started with Usui Reiki. I took Shambhala Reiki, which very much focuses on the I am statements. And one of the most significant statements, and I always talk about that to anybody, was the statement of, I am a perfect channel and the instrument of the hierarchy of light. I had no idea what that even meant. I mean, I didn't really fully comprehend what channeling means at that time. I really didn't. But my heart, my passion, I knew I wanted to be a channel and instrument of the hierarchy of light. Whatever that meant, I was open to it. And so that was the first foundation for stepping into my past.
Got it. And so, can you explain? So, what is channeling? I know before we get to who you channel and how that works, what actually is channeling?
Well, think about channeling really like the word describes. When you create a channel, you connect one point with another point. And you know, a water channel connects one port with another port. So the same with the inner channeling. When you channel, you align yourself with another frequency that the person that you're channeling for not necessarily can connect with by themselves. And it's not because they can't. They could work on changing their frequency and then they could connect as well. It's simply that they might not have thought of it, or they might not have done the work to raise their frequency to that level. So I become a bridge as a channel to connect with a higher frequency of those ascended masters and bring it through me out to those who I'm in contact with, which can be through words, it can be through hands-on healing, it can be through simply holding the space. Sometimes it's as simple as being present, holding the space with this higher vibration of love and light to come through as a channel for transformation to take place. It's not always about words. You know, one of the common themes in the last few weeks has been to listen. Listening is a very powerful part of healing, because only when you're willing to really listen to and seeing what's going on, can you then offer something to neutralize the pain or neutralize the darkness? Because really in the whole concept of all that is, there is light and there's darkness. There's love and there's fear. The idea is, how can we bring both together to merge so that you can shift to another experience? And that really describes Saint-Germain and the violet flame. In the violet, you have the two primal colors of blue and red, symbolizing the two forces, two aspects, two opposing forces. And then through the power of love, so the power of compassion, so the power of your Christ itself, not referring to the Catholic Christ, but to the Christed consciousness of kindness, of gentleness, of mindfulness. Through that gentleness, through that peacefulness, can the opposing forces come together, merge, and step into a whole new expression of self. And that really is what happens when you channel. You bring two aspects together, the aspect of the divine and the one who wants to contact the divine, you become the bridge, you become the violet flame that allows the connection to take place, and then you channel. For me, it is not only through feeling, they speak to me, I'm clairaudient, I hear them, but I also step away so they speak through me to whoever is willing to receive what they have to offer. I'm 80 to 90% out of the way, sometimes a little bit more, but I also made an agreement with the hierarchy of light that I want to be a little bit present to learn from this, you know, so. Yeah. And sometimes they push me away. Sometimes I don't know anything of what is being said, and it's like a dream state. When I come back, it just fades away, and unless something or someone reminds me of a little piece, and then it unravels, you know, like in the morning when you wake up, you remember a little piece of the dream, and then everything unravels. So that's the same for me. So that's kind of channeling. It's a connection, it's a bridge, light bridge, that's where it comes from. Light bridge to bring through the higher frequencies, the higher wisdom from the higher realms through to whoever wants to hear it.
It's a perfect name. That was brilliant.
Yeah, and 101 to make it easy, you know.
Of course, I love that. So, Brigitte, just a question for you. Is there, do they ever just come through you? Is there always someone willing to receive? Or do they sometimes just come through you and tell you something? How does that work?
Yes, it's exactly how you're saying. I've worked with them so much, especially with Saint-Germain. I've worked with them in a manner that sometimes they just slip in. You know, and not everybody is aware of when it happens because they're just not aware of the higher presence necessarily. But I've had situations where I started speaking and they came through to my mom, for example, who became all wide-eyed and said, "Oh my God, your whole face is changing. This isn't even you anymore talking to me. You don't speak German like this." And that's when she realized, and when I realized, like, oh wow, I guess someone is coming through. So usually I get the face expression where they go, oh, you know, and then I know, oh, I guess someone else is really talking with me and through me. And honestly, I'm very humble and honest with myself. I'm not that smart. When certain wisdom comes through, I'm like, there's no possible way that I could have come up with that kind of answer, you know? So yes.
It's really funny, but it totally makes sense. Is there always, I want to just try and, like, so well, first of all, let me ask you this. Who is Saint-Germain? No.
Well, this is a real important question because there's so many misinterpretations of Saint-Germain, or there's so many interpretations of who Saint-Germain is. And to be fair to everyone, no one is wrong. And it's really the same with what you're noticing now with COVID-19, with all these theories that everybody has. Everybody experiences the truth in their own unique way. And this is really important. And it's good because we need diversity. And everybody reaches certain kind of people. So Saint-Germain in itself, when you study the 7 sacred flames, Saint-Germain is on the 7th sacred flame, or sometimes also known as 7th sacred ray, which is the violet flame. The way I understand it is Saint-Germain in itself is a vast consciousness. This vast consciousness is all about transformation. It is all about helping you to move from one form of existence to the next. So when you ascend, at that moment of shifting from one level of consciousness to the next, for example, when Jesus at the cross died and raised up, at that moment, Saint-Germain, or the consciousness of Saint-Germain, had to be present to help him with that final shift, with that final transformation from one form of existence to the next. So that is the vast consciousness of what is known as Saint-Germain. Now, out of that, different aspects have been incarnated. Some, there used to be in Poland, I think, a great magician who represented, I think his name was Frank, I'm sorry, I can't really think of the name, but who represented that Saint-Germain essence. There are different people who claim to be Saint-Germain. they're certainly bringing through an aspect of that vast consciousnness. So I don't want to take that away from them. The Saint-Germain that I'm very much connected with was born in Hungary. He was the son of the house of the Ragocis, and his name was George Leopold Ragoci. He was sent into exile when he was 11 years old, and he grew up in the house of Medicis, remembering a lot of things that were already within him, because he came into that incarnation already having broken through the veil, already having ascended in his previous life. And so for him, it was just a matter of awakening. Similar to when you look at Jesus, who at a very early age also already went through a series of initiations that got him to where he was at an early age too. And the same with George Leopold Ragoci. He was known in Europe as a wonder man. He was known as being able to not age. That got him heat. Some called him Count Dracula, or like being a vampire, because he always seemed to be in his late 40s, early 50s. And yet his focus always has been to assist in the evolutionary process here on Earth. He was present during the French Revolution, doing his best to ease the intensity of the French Revolution. He was present at the signing of the Declaration of Independence in America. America is very dear to him because of the symbolism of liberty and freedom. That's very much what he stands for with his violet flame. It's all about freedom, freedom of speech, the freedom to express your divine self in the world, freedom. And so he continuously has been helping in the evolutionary process on Earth. He had many other lifetimes, Shakespeare among one, but there are other lifetimes too. And again, even in those lifetimes, he always had this connection to humanity, wanting to help humanity in the awakening process, whether it was through the written word, whether it was through other means, but he was always present. Some believes that he was Columbus in his past life, helping to open up the pathway to America. And of course, that's one of the lifetimes he gets a lot of heat for, because look what happened to the natives here in this country. And he brought, I don't know, what was it? Was it some kind of illness to America? I forgot. It was the influenza, I think, he brought to America, to the natives, which obviously they weren't, a lot of people died because of that. But we have to look at the intention of people. Of course, he wasn't intending to open up the portal for slavery and to open up the portal for illness to come through. He had the desire to expansion, to look for new horizons. And that really is propelling us forward when we start saying, what else is there? How can we break out of the box? How can we look beyond that, what is visible to us right now? And that's his message to us. What can we do beyond what we are used to? So we break a mold and we experience new aspects of ourselves in the world.
Well, that couldn't be more prevalent right now.
Yes.
It's never been in, this lifetime for us, such a question.
Yes.
So let me ask you, what you're understanding is that these ascended masters walk amongst us.
Yes.
And they come with specific intention to do things, to change the world.
They are avatars to a certain extent. They've worked through the incarnation process and went through the wheel of incarnation and raised themselves up to a higher consciousness level so that they no longer are part of the wheel of incarnation. And they've chosen to stay close to Earth, for example, because they feel they want to assist humanity to do the same that they did. They're here like Buddha, like Jesus, this deep love of wanting to see humanity excel beyond the limitations that humanity has set for themselves, and to raise their consciousness to a higher form of existence, to also ascend. And think about frequency for a moment. When you see a wheel turning really fast, you can no longer see really the hub of the wheel because it's moving so fast, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that the hub of the wheel isn't there, right?
Correct.
The same with the ascended masters. They are in a higher frequency and we can't see them. Doesn't mean that they are not there. We can feel them. And if we would raise our frequency enough to match theirs, then guess what? They are going to become visible to us.
Well, so that leads me to my next question, because you have raised your frequency, you know, and all your experiences and what you teach. And have you ever had the experience of actually seeing an ascended master? And then what's that like?
Yes. And it always comes in the most unexpected way. So I always said, you know, it can't just happen to those few special people in these books that you read about. I want to have my own experience too. And it always happens in the most surprising ways. I used to work at a New Age shop in Pennsylvania. And I was at a place where I was ready to give up, to walk away from everything. I was in a real bad place. So I walked in the store where I volunteered. And I said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I just need to focus on my day job. End of story. Forget about spirituality. And in walks this man. Now, I have to say, the night before, I read a book written by Elizabeth Clare Prophet about Saint-Germain's prophecies. And I read a whole chapter on that. So he walks in, this man looks very much like a businessman, doesn't look anything like Saint-Germain, nothing like Saint-Germain. So he walks in and he walks towards, he looks a little lost at first. I said, hey, can I help you? And I'm thinking at the back of my mind, oh, look, it's a businessman. I can deal with that. You know, he doesn't seem to be like in La La Land or anything like that. So he came over and he started talking to me. And he started first off with saying things he couldn't possibly know. He said, I really just wanted to check out the store because I know a new owner took it over a few years ago, which was not announced. He started quoting everything out of the chapter that I read the night before. And nobody walked into the store while he was there. We had a person working in the store doing healing work. She didn't have a client, but she stayed in her room. She usually comes out. She had no clue he was there. He talked to me. He said, America is moving towards a revolution, but sadly, it will always hit the minorities the worst. So America needs to be really careful in the direction that they go into, so it doesn't hurt the wrong people. And then he said other things that, again, he quoted out of the book. And I just felt like I was, you have this feeling like you know you're talking to an enlightened person. There's your heart opening up. There's this vibration of awe. Like, wow, look at this man. Look at the wisdom that he brings through. And you just hang on this person's lips like it's nectar. And you keep listening and you keep watching. And once it started clicking in. I started realizing, like, wait a minute. These are all the things I read the night before. How does he know that? He said one last thing. He held my arm. He said, you're very beautiful. He turned around. He walked out the door, never to be seen again. Everybody started walking in and out. The healer in the back had no idea what happened. And he was gone. And I'm like, how is that possible? But yet it was at a crucial moment in my life where I needed that to continue with being a channel. And so it's not like they come to you necessarily like in a robe or in any formal way where you say, oh my God, that's an ascended masters. Usually they're very nondescript. It's the energy that you feel. It's the essence that you feel. And by the time you realize it, it's usually too late. They're already long gone and you stand there and you're like, wow, how did I miss that? And another thing about the Ascended Masters is that they have two ways of showing up. One is they physically materialize. They can do that. They rather not, because think about frequency again. When a high frequency being suddenly materializes, it has an effect on the surrounding. It actually sends out a wave of transformation and of intensity. So they rather not do that. So most often what they will do is they will actually temporarily embody someone who's willing to take on their essence. And that poor random man with the essence of Saint-Germain probably walked into the store, walked out, and afterwards had no idea that that's what he did. That's probably the way it worked.
Thank you for explaining that and sharing that unbelievable story. I get like goosebumps at the feeling you must have felt when you had that like realization of what was happening, and then probably processed it for days and months after.
Yes, and it's, you know, and what I love about the story is I can tell it to everybody, and I can tell them it can happen to you. It can happen to anyone. They're there. And I've heard other stories of people having met with Saint-Germain. So it can happen to anybody, anyone, at any time. It's not just a selected few. Have trust and faith. Keep the connection going. I talk to Saint-Germain every day. He's my friend. He's not just an ascended master. He's a friend. He helps me when I feel like I need support. I talk to him. He guides me. And in the beginning, when I didn't really know the extent of my spiritual guide, who he really was, he was just known to me as Jack. Because the very first time I was introduced to Saint-Germain, I was not ready to at all accept Saint-Germain. So I was told by a channel, believe it or not, I was told that there's a spirit guide around me that wants me to know that he's watching over me and that his name is Jack. And if I want to call on him, just say, "What's up, Jack?" And if I want to get rid of him, just say, "Hit the road, Jack." What you need to know is that I used to sing in the car the song, "Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more." Nobody knew that. I only sang that by myself in the car. But I also always said in the car while I was driving, I really want to know my spirit guide. I really want to know who you are. Please let me know who you are. So I asked, I knocked on heaven's door. What is your name? Can you show yourself to me? Who are you? Who am I working with? And that's how he introduced himself as Jack. So for a couple of years, he was Jack. He helped me pick clothes. He was my best friend. He gave me directions. He was just like the greatest friend you can have. And then I began getting more guidance where, in the most funny way, I watched Shakespeare in Love and thought the movie was great. Thought, wow, you know, fantastic movie. Then I watched, every once in a while, in those times, I watched cartoons. I watched Donald Duck and Scrooge, and Scrooge threw out these gangsters and said, hit the road, Jack," as William Shakespeare would say. And I'm like, what?
No way.
So Jack and Shakespeare suddenly had to connect, and I'm like, it can't be Shakespeare who's my spirit guide. That just can't be it. And then I read that Shakespeare is considered a past life of the Saint-Germain that I'm working with, and it all started to flow together.
It's so incredible, the synchronicity and how
Yes.
it matches up.
Yes.
And it's like, it just gives you more and more confirmation to your belief.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it just keeps evolving and evolving. And you come then to a point but at that time I wasn't even channeling yet. It was just inner communication. But you come to a point where you realize that you can't keep it just for yourself. There's greater purpose. It's for you to share. It's for you to bring out into the world. And then the next level of steps are handed to you to actually make it your work.
It makes it accessible, what you're doing. And what I love about you is you're a real person, but you also, you know, you extremely ascended, and you've had these experiences, these spiritual experiences. And so because you have Saint-Germain, Jack, you know, and the other masters around you, do you ever feel fear? Because you're still a person, but yet you're able to live in both worlds.
Absolutely. Oh my God. I'm a human being. I am part of the human consciousness. As a matter of fact, the further along on the path I feel I walk, the the thinner the line between light and darkness. So it's really important that I focus on balance, do whatever I can to maintain balance. And I've seen channels of Saint-Germain, how they actually have fallen off the deep end, because the violet flame is very powerful. It really intensifies everything. So you keep doing your work. You keep acknowledging that there's things that are coming up to the surface that are for you to transform and transmute. And it keeps you humble, because how can you help humanity or anybody if you're on that level and they're on this level? For me, again, I am part of life. When someone comes to me for help, I recognize that a part of me is also within them and a part of them is within me. There is no separation per se. And so it keeps you humble, it keeps you grounded. I put a pair of pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. I have my moments and I work through them. And I have great friends that support me and help me through my dark moments. And when you study Kabbalah, which is one of my most favorite subjects, you learn that out of contraction, the new light is born. Contraction is part of the experience of a physical body. And we so often judge contraction. We are afraid of it, the dark night of the soul. And yet it is only as painful as we are trying to control the process. And so it's learning to accept the darkness, accept the contraction as what it is, teaching you to let yourself enter the underworld to give birth to new divine gifts. And so I am like everyone else, having moments where I descend into my own little underworld, not little, honestly, sometimes it's very vast, into my underworld to face my fears and to transform and transmute them. And honestly, that's how I can have compassion. That's how I can help other people, because I understand, I know the pain. I've had physical pains growing up. I've had emotional challenges. I had mental challenges. I understand. It's so easy to say, oh, just change your belief system. But it takes work. And sometimes we need outside help to be able to shift the frequency, because when we are too deep in our own inner darkness, no matter how much we try, we might not be able to get out of it. And then it takes someone with a lantern to come into our darkness and to shed some light into it, to give us the opportunity to see where the exit point even is. That's who I hope I can be for others, that guide with a lantern that shows you how to find your way out of the darkness. But honestly, the work you still have to do. This is not like winning the lottery. You do the work, but if you really are desiring to step to a higher consciousness level, to become a co-creator, to take charge of your life, to no longer be a victim, then all the doors will open up for you.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And that lantern analogy is magnificent. And I see it around me so much, because I'm connected to a lot of healers through the Soul Cave, and we have all been going through this crazy roller coaster, and I didn't use this analogy, but we have been the lantern for each other during this time.
Yes, friends are so important. You can no longer walk this path alone. If you walk this path alone, it will be mighty difficult. And so it takes friends. And really, life is your greatest teacher. When you come right down to it, life is your teacher. Your friends will mirror back to you what you need to learn. It's great.
It's true. And so what have you learned, love, in this time of COVID and this, like 3 months? Tell us something that you've learned.
Well, this has been a part of life where it was about introspection for sure. And the way I understand Saint-Germain, this is a time where previous timelines ended and new timelines are beginning. And what that means is we've been given an opportunity to step onto a whole new path in our life. Now, our human self can be terrified of this. and in our human nature, we really don't like change so much. And in our human self, we would like to have a plan A, plan B, or someone to tell us, take the left turn and then take the right turn. But it doesn't really work that way. And so what I found happening during this time is slowing down, and the vision that I want you to have is when a train comes into the train station, it starts slowing down and it stops. And then you get off the train and you allow yourself to run to the bathroom. You allow yourself maybe to get some refreshments. And you might even have to sit down for a while to wait before the new train is coming into the train station for you to take to get to your next destination. And that's what COVID-19 was so far, like for me, being in that train station and not really rushing to get on the next train already, to give myself permission to close out the previous cycles of my life, to bring closure to everything up to this point, and to really just sit with myself and to say, okay, where am I at? Which way am I? Which way do I really want to head? What is it that brings me joy? Because so often, especially as light workers or light bearers, actually we have talked to some friends who said we don't like the word light worker anymore because it sounds like work, like we have to do this. Light bearers, light sharers. And really, we sometimes get caught in the idea that we must do this and that, and we're responsible, and we have to share the light, and we must have these lectures and write this book and do this class and whatnot. But really, do we have to? Who's talking, Ria? Is it our human selves that still needs to prove that we are worthy of ascension, that we are worthy of being loved, that we are worthy to even be embodied right now? So to let that voice calm down so that I can begin to hear another voice, the voice of my heart, the voice of my soul, the voice of my divine I'm presence. So for me, it was very much about slowing down and allowing myself the non-doing, the non-action, the peace and quietness and the silence necessary for something new within the womb of your universal feminine self to grow until you can even recognize what it might be. Because in the beginning, when someone is pregnant, they don't know if they are going to have a boy or a girl. It takes some time to recognize and to feel and to let that grow and become into something that you then can give birth to. And I really just started to feel in the last week or so, really since you contacted me, it started to open up again. It started to show itself a little bit more to me. I'm not sure I know it yet, but I have trust and faith that with every moment, every day, I will get another opportunity to discover which train I really want to take out of that train station before jumping on.
That resonates with me so much. I went through a similar process, and it has been about a week since I spoke to you, love, that things have shifted, and I'm starting to see glimpses of the trains, as you call it. So thank you for sharing that, because it completely hits me in the right way. And now let me ask you, is there a message that you can either, bring us from Saint-Germain, one of the masters, something you could either channel or that you can share with us right now?
Let's see what he has to say. He's always right there. So let me just, I usually close my eyes for this process. Not that I have to. Again, there are times where I channel this eyes open, but I find it just allows me to really go within, and it's my comfort zone. And why not being in your comfort zone, right? So I'm going to close my eyes and we'll just see what he has to say to everybody. Greetings, my beloved friends and fellow light workers. I am Saint-Germain, and I come to you with a message of love and of empowerment. I understand that these times right now are times of uncertainty, but are they really? If you go deep within your heart and allow yourself that alignment with your divine self, with that greater part of you, and if you're willing to surrender and let go of control, something very beautiful can happen to you in the midst of chaos. Yes, chaos exists as a step prior to giving birth to a new consciousness. But do you have to be affected by it? Allow yourself to pull back. Allow yourself to recognize that there's you and then there's humanity. And it doesn't mean that you separate yourself from humanity, but it allows you to step more into the observer role. And when you're in the observer role, then you can see with so much more clarity where the pain is, where the belief systems are that create this pain, and where you have been holding on to something that at this time might no longer serve you. I very much invite you to use the power of the I am statements. I am symbolizes the willingness of you to acknowledge that you truly are. You exist. You have substance. You have roots. You have an alignment to source, God, Creator, the great spirit of all that is. You are something of your own choosing. And so use the I am statement as a tool to hone in on your passion. Passion is going to be your greatest support in these times of transformation. Allow yourself to be passionate about something again. It doesn't make a difference what it is. The key is that through the passion, you ignite the fire of your soul to bring about transformation, to bring about a new manifestation of physical life around you. And so ask yourself, if you use that statement of I am, what do you choose to be? Start simple. I am love. I am light. I am one with the great spirit of all that is. I am all-encompassing love and compassion. I am filled with an awareness that allows me to see beyond the duality and acknowledge the oneness that is within everything. So sit with that. Create your own I am statements and hone in on what it is you're truly passionate about, truly what you want to create on earth at this time. And nothing can stop you. Only your own doubts, only your own fears can stop you. So use the violet flame and ask the violet flame to transform and transmute any doubt and any fear into all-encompassing love and light. Do that over and over again, and you can witness quite some miracles and magic in your life again. Know that I'm with you always. I am Saint-Germain, and it is so. Namaste to you all.
Wow, how perfectly incredible that was. That message was perfect.
Good.
Thank you
Good.
for doing that, love. Really.
Oh,
You.
absolutely.
And I just want people to know, like, so you usually run, about 60 to 70 retreats around the world. You teach Kabbalah, you do one-on-one healings, you have an amazing light center. So if people...
The retreats right now, quite honestly, are in America, not around the world yet. I'm not going that far yet, but thank you. Thank you for the vote of confidence. I love it.
I can see that's going to happen. Huh?
As soon as I get rid of my day job, yes, that will happen. That is in the making. That's the next train I'm going to jump on, you know?
I love it. But can you take a little side detour to Roslyn Soul Cave when we open up?
Yes, I would love that. Oh
That
my
would
God,
be
that would be
amazing.
beautiful. And I have to mention that one of my great spiritual partners is Mike Snyder. He channels the hierarchy of light through the music that he plays. And together we create these events and these beautiful experiences where the music takes you deeper. It takes you into that alignment that allows you to be more receptive to that, what the hierarchy of light has to say, what Saint-Germain has to say. And together we create this journey of inner transformation, of activations, of healing, of guidance, of wisdom that are extremely transformative. And we want to bring more of those out into the world. We have retreats. We have that hopefully are growing, but I have no doubt. Then we teach classes. So check out my website at www.lightbridge101.com. You can also check out Mike's website because there are a lot of music that you can listen to. There are events that we have already done that you can listen to. There are actually, I used to do a radio show on voiceamerica.com. You can download them for free. They are timeless. I tell you that. They are for all kinds of occasions, so you can check those out. And his website is MikeSnyderCC.com. So that's MikeSnyderCC.com. And we used to have once a month a radio show. Now we are actually doing a radio show as we are guided, because we have sometimes these spiritual events. Like this Saturday, we are going to have, Friday is the full moon with a lunar eclipse. So it's going to be a very powerful day. That is known as the Festival of Humanity. It's the first full moon after the full moon in Taurus. And we are going to celebrate that. We are doing this over the Blog Talk radio show. You can go either to, I think I'm going to put it on my website tomorrow, but alternatively, you can go to spiritualconnectionsradio.com and you can check it out there too. That's where all of our radio shows are archived as well. So you can listen to some old shows as well. And so we are doing radio shows. We, right now with COVID, we are a little bit more pulled back, so it's mostly radio shows. I do one-on-one sessions either via Skype, via Zoom, if you want it recorded, via telephone, whatever you want, it works. The energies, no matter who I talk to, the healing comes through. They feel like the masters are right there with them. So it doesn't make a difference whether you do long distance or in person. And we are, once things are eased up again, we are going to offer more classes, more events. And I'm thinking about starting to offer a lot more virtual too, so that we can reach a wider community, obviously.
Brilliant. And I'm glad you explained all of that. And I wanted to add two things. One, I loved when you and I originally spoke that you said in your retreats that you do all over, you love watching the light come back into people's eyes. And I could see that with you. I could feel it. And then also, I was lucky enough to experience your Saint-Germain radio, like a recording of you and Mike. And he did some sound healing, like the Twin Hearts, I think, something, one of those. And then you did some channeling, and it was phenomenal. Like, I really felt it. I felt that, and I listened to so many different people, and there was something very special about that. So I really recommend for anybody watching to just, seek Brigitte out and Mike, and I will also put all the contact information on the bottom of this video. And I thank you so much for.
Oh, thank you. This was wonderful, and I wish you all the best with doing a lot more of these interviews. You're amazing. You're truly a pleasure to do this with. Thank you.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Peace out.